All right. Hello. This is Josh Turum. I'm the uh, owner and managing partner of our small family firm here in Milwaukee, specializing in workers' compensation matters and personal injury matters. Today, I am going to talk about billing practices in the medical field, kind of the do's and don'ts, and how to deal with these bills as they come in. Medical billing, or medical bills, I should say, over the years, I feel have been getting more and more complicated, harder for people to digest, understand. They also seem to be coming with more and more or surprises. In the past, there seemed to be some sort of expectation of what a patient was going to owe, and these days it seems to be more of a mystery. And that's probably even outside of the whole workers' compensation, personal injury madness. It's just kind of generally speaking, medical billing has gotten a little tricky. So I'm going to talk about it in the context of a workers' compensation claim, and kind of what to look out for, do's, don'ts, that kind of fun stuff. But I think this has become an issue even outside of the workers' compensation or personal injury world. So in the standard workers' compensation matter, or at least one where we're involved, the case has been denied by the workers' compensation carrier for whatever reason. The workers' compensation carrier has stated that we don't think it's work related, or there's a pre existing condition, or there's some sort of factual denial, or whatever it may be. And at that point, any bills would be, more or less kind of in limbo, or outstanding. And this can be kind of tricky because a lot of times it'll happen in real time, and there will be bills that have been billed to the workers' compensation insurance carrier, but they are not being processed and or paid because the denial happens in real time. And so there can be kind of this retroactive issue with older bills that haven't been billed or paid by workers' comp. The best piece of advice that I can give any injured worker, and I know injured workers do not like to hear this, especially when they're appealing their workers' compensation claims, is that if your case is denied and you have health insurance, I highly, highly, highly recommend contacting the medical provider and asking them to bill your health insurance. Again, I know this is something that you don't want to hear because billing the health insurance comes with copays and deductibles and out-of-pocket expenses that you think, or understandably think that you don't know because it's a work-related condition and workers' comp should be paying it. And in the end, that may very well happen, especially if we're representing you and we end up winning the appeal. But in real time, it's incredibly important that any outstanding medical bill get billed to the health insurance that has been denied by workers' comp. Um, I say this for a couple of reasons. The first reason is that if it is not billed to your health insurance carrier and you are not, financially set, meaning, you don't have hundreds of thousands or millions sitting in the bank to pay off these bills, um, the medical provider most likely is only going to wait a matter of a few months before they send it to a collection agency. And once it goes to a collection agency, it can impact your credit. It can impact, your borrowing ability in the future. It really has all kinds of impacts on you that you don't want. Um, Secondly, and maybe as important, is if it's billed to the health insurance and it gets processed and paid by the health insurance, that outstanding amount is going to be significantly lower than if the health insurance doesn't process and pay it, meaning that that amount becomes far more doable or payable in the event that the health insurance actually covers a portion or the most significant portion of the bill itself. To put it just real simply, a copay or deductible amount is always easier to cover in both the short term and long term than the entire balance as a whole. And so it's again to avoid collections and to limit or mitigate the damage as much as possible. It's incredibly important that denied bills, denied workers' compensation bills, are processed and paid by the health insurance, and they are put forward to the health insurance for payment. Um, okay, so let's assume that you follow that recommendation and you run it through the health insurance. Just know that the health insurance does have an opportunity to get reimbursed by workers' comp if it's determined in the end that it is a work-related condition. So it's not as if the health insurance is paying and there's no recourse or workers' comp got out of it or anything like that. The workers' compensation carrier may still be responsible for reimbursing the health carrier, just as and the same would go for any out of pockets. They'd be in, workers' comp would be responsible for reimbursing you for any out of pockets or deductible amount. So again, can't stress it enough. Run those denied bills through your health insurance if at all possible. Um, Another thing, when it comes to these copay and deductible amounts, obviously everybody has a different health insurance plan, different amounts that are owed when it comes to copays, deductibles, coinsurance, so on and so forth. What I advise people is if you get the bill for the copay or deductible amount, that you do everything you can to pay that amount. Again, main reason behind this is to avoid collections. If you don't make payments on the copay or deductible, most of especially the larger hospital systems, are still going to send these amounts to collections, which is what we're trying to avoid. And that kind of brings up the next point. The a lot of times people don't necessarily know that these medical providers, if they are paid something, either a payment plan or some sort of amount to let them know that you care and you're trying to get these paid and so on, they will hold those bills for a longer period of time and not send those to collection. So I highly recommend that if you get one of those bills, and even if you can't pay the whole thing, you have this couple $1,000 and there's no way you can just write a check for that amount. Contact the provider, see if you can do payment plans, a monthly payment plan, a quarterly payment plan, whatever's easiest or best for you. I've seen payment plans as low as $100 a month, sometimes even lower than that. Most of these providers are willing to work with you so long as they're getting something and there's an end in sight for their bill getting paid. They really, most of the time, they don't want to send you to collections. They don't want to deal with the collection agency. They don't want to deal with having to, garnish or get any lawyers involved or anything. They really just want to be paid. So we highly recommend that you're upfront with the medical provider, see what you can do in terms of a payment plan and so on. The last thing that I'm just going to talk about is kind of the end of the claim and how this medical billing and how these practices work. A lot of people I've realized over the years are really unfamiliar with the potential or the ability to negotiate their medical bills. There are some medical providers that take a hard line and say, it's non-negotiable. There's no way that we're not going to come, down at all in terms of your copay deductible amount or any unpaid balance. But those medical providers are really few and far between. Most providers that we deal with, and even in the big hospital systems, will give some sort of self-pay discount or negotiate in good faith if they see that they can get an upfront payment or the majority of their bill paid. If you have a $10,000 outstanding balance that's been sitting out there for 4 years and you think you're going to get it paid off for $1,000 or something, that's not going to happen most likely. But in most of these instances, even in that sort of scenario, we see a lot of these providers taking 50%, 60%, or even doing 20 to 33% discounts on their bills. So be aware of that. I mean, these providers, they may act like they're going to take a hard line or behave in a way where they're saying if you don't pay this by X date, we're going to do this or send it to collections or to a lawyer or so on. But most of the time, if you have an open conversation with them, tell them your situation, tell them what's going on, how it's in litigation, you're trying to get it paid, you're being upfront, honest about things, and you can ultimately get them the majority of their balance. A lot of times, it's important to know that they will negotiate and or apply some sort of self-pay discount. So I bring this up because I think in my experience, most people are like, that's the bill, I have to pay it. And for the smaller amounts, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you should just pay them if you can. The bills in the hundreds and that kind of stuff, a couple hundred here, a couple hundred there. But once you get into the thousands, or if there isn't an end in sight, at least as far as what they've seen, a lot of times those bills do become negotiable, and it's important that you're aware of it. Um, Again, question your medical bills. When you get these bills, question them. If you see something out of whack, question it. I have seen so many errors in medical billing. I've seen so many situations where people do not understand what the bills are, what they mean, why the amounts are what they are, billed for other charges. I've seen cases where people get bills for other people. It's really kind of wild. These medical providers are dealing with thousands, hundreds of thousands of people and all kinds of situations, and they make mistakes. They create, they may not have run it through the right insurance, so on. When you get that bill, you review it, and if you don't understand something, or if it looks wacky or problematic, question it. Again, I've seen so many situations where they either get overturned or something happened that was wrong, and they really can be fixed and lowered significantly. So medical bills are a huge part of what we do. Be aware of them. Be question them, and obviously, if there's any questions that we can answer for you, we would be happy to do so. So, thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions about a medical bill that you received in a denied workers' compensation claim or a personal injury matter, please reach out to us. We're happy to talk you through it and even look at the bill for you, because we know how complex and complicated they can be. Thanks again for listening, and take care.